There is a child who astonishes everyone around them. They walk early. They talk early. They read before kindergarten, count in the hundreds, ask questions that leave adults blinking. Everyone says the same thing. This child is gifted. This child is going somewhere. And then, quietly, without anyone quite noticing when it started, they stop. They stop raising their hand. They stop finishing their homework. They stop trying new things. The child who once absorbed the world like a sponge now sits in the back row and shrugs. And everyone around them wonders the same thing. What happened? Here's what almost no one tells you. What happened was not failure. What happened was the brain working exactly as designed. Your child did not lose their intelligence. They lost something far more fragile and far more important. They lost their belief that intelligence could grow. And that belief, it turns out, is the difference between a learner who accelerates for a lifetime and one who peaks before age 10. In the 1970s, a young researcher named Carol Dweck was trying to understand why some children collapsed in the face of failure while others seemed almost energized by it. She sat with kids in classrooms, gave them puzzles, watched what happened when the puzzles got hard. What she found split the children into two completely different worlds. Some children, when faced with a problem they could not solve, became anxious, avoidant, and defeated. They said things like, "I'm not good at this," or "I never want to do this again." Other children leaned in. They said things like, "I haven't figured it out yet." They did not experience failure as a verdict. They experienced it as data. Dweck spent the next 4 decades tracking what made the difference. It was not IQ. It was not family income. It was not even how many books were in the home. The single most powerful variable was a belief. Children who believed that their intelligence was a fixed thing they were born with, a quantity you either had or you did not, crumbled when that fixed thing was challenged. Children who believed that intelligence was something you could grow through effort and strategy kept going. Dweck called these two orientations fixed mindset and growth mindset. And the research that followed her was staggering. But here is the part the parenting books skip. Children are not born with either mindset. They are taught one. And the most loving, well-meaning adults in the world are often the ones doing the teaching. When you tell a child they are smart, you are trying to encourage them. You are trying to build their confidence. And in the short term, it works. The child feels a surge of pride. But Dweck's experiments showed something disturbing. Children who were praised for being smart became risk-averse almost immediately. When given a choice between a hard puzzle and an easy one, they chose the easy one. When they failed at something, they lied about their scores to avoid looking less smart. They had been handed an identity, smart, and their entire nervous system organized itself around protecting that identity. Hard things became threats. Mistakes became evidence of the opposite of what they had been told they were. Children praised for effort, on the other hand, chose the harder puzzles. They tried strategies. They asked for help. They were not protecting an identity. They were building a skill. This is the trap your child has fallen into, and it was built with the kindest words you knew how to say. Now you need to understand what is happening inside the brain, because this is not just psychology. This is neuroscience. And it changes everything. For years, scientists believed the human brain was essentially fixed after early childhood. You were dealt a hand of neurons, the connections formed in the first few years, and after a certain point the game was set. But in the 1990s, a wave of research destroyed that assumption. Neuroscientists discovered that the brain remains plastic, meaning physically changeable, throughout the entire lifespan. Every time you learn something new, neurons fire together and, as the saying goes, wire together. New synaptic connections form. Old and used connections prune away. The brain is not a fixed container. It is a living architecture that rebuilds itself based on what you do with it. A researcher named Merzenich spent decades documenting this. His work on neuroplasticity showed that practicing a skill does not just make you better at it. It literally changes the physical structure of your brain. The region that processes that skill becomes denser, more connected, more efficient. You are not just rehearsing. You are remodeling. And here is the part that should change how you talk to your child tonight. Children who understand this, who know that the brain physically grows through struggle, perform better in school. Not slightly better. Measurably, dramatically better. When students in low-performing schools were taught a single lesson about how the brain grows through challenge, their grades improved, their persistence increased, and their teachers noticed behavioral changes within weeks. Not because the students suddenly became smarter. Because they stopped treating difficulty as a stop sign and started treating it as a workout. The brain grows when it struggles. This is not a metaphor. This is biology. So why does the gifted child stop? Let us go back to the beginning. The child who learns fast early in life gets something intoxicating. They get effortless success. Everything comes easily. They are celebrated for it. And the brain, which is always trying to build the most efficient model of the world, learns something very specific. Learning is supposed to feel easy. If it feels hard, something is wrong. If I have to try, maybe I am not as smart as they said I was. This is what researchers call the gift trap. The very speed of early learning becomes a liability. Because when the material finally becomes appropriately challenging, and it always does, the child has no mental framework for what to do next. They have never needed one before. They have never had to sit with confusion. They have never had to fail at something and try again. They have no practice with the feeling of not yet knowing something. A child who never learned how to struggle never developed what psychologists call academic resilience. And academic resilience is not about being tough. It is about having a strategy. It is about knowing that confusion is the beginning of understanding, not proof of its absence. Angela Duckworth, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, built on this with her research into what she called grit. Her work tracked thousands of people across high-pressure environments, military academies, national spelling bees, high-poverty schools, and she found the same thing Dweck found, dressed in different language. Talent was not the predictor of long-term success. Talent predicted early performance. What predicted sustained performance across years and decades was the combination of passion and perseverance she called grit. And grit, like the growth mindset, was not fixed at birth. It was built. Or it was not built. Depending on what happened in childhood. The gifted child who stops is not lazy. They are not ungrateful. They are not suddenly less intelligent. They are someone who was handed an identity instead of a process, and now that identity is buckling under the weight of actual challenge. So what do? You change the story. Not in a speech. Not in a single conversation. In the 10,000 small moments you have with a child every single day. You stop saying I am so proud of you, you are so smart. You start saying I am so proud of you, I can see how hard you worked on that. You stop framing challenges as things they should be able to do easily. You start framing them as things their brain is literally growing through right now. You stop rescuing them from frustration the moment it appears. You start sitting beside them in the frustration and naming it. This is hard. Hard is good. Hard is your brain getting stronger. You introduce them to the word yet. You do not know how to do this yet. You have not figured it out yet. That two-letter word contains an entire philosophy of learning. It turns a wall into a door. And you tell them, in language they can understand, what Merzenich proved in his lab. Every time you struggle with something and keep going, your brain physically builds new connections. The struggle is not the enemy. The struggle is the point. The child sitting in the back row, shrugging, is not done. The child who stopped raising their hand is not broken. They are a mind that was handed a fixed story too early, a story that says intelligence is something you are, not something you do. The science says something different. The brain says something different. What your child is experiencing right now is not the end of their potential. It is the beginning of the most important lesson they will ever learn. That the thing that feels impossible today is building the mind that will make it easy tomorrow. You were told this child was a gift. The research says you were right. But the gift was never the early speed. The gift is the capacity to grow. And that capacity does not disappear. It just needs to be told the truth about itself.